Shri Matre Namaha. The history of our Indian civilization started from Indus Valley. So many monuments found in Harappa, Mohenjo-daro by archaeologists. Our culture is an ancient one in the world. We have a lot of traditional background in all the fields. Especially, we are all believed with our philosophies of our sages. We always worship the goddess earth because all the metals, as we are enjoying today, derived from the heart of the part of the earth. That's why we always have respect and devotion towards our nature. We treat nature as our God. That's why we are considered the ancient philosophers by the world. Moreover, our technologies, what we are enjoying today, was found in ancient days itself during our Indus Valley civilization. So, we have to feel proud of our traditional and cultural prospects. Basing on this, today, I want to bring forth you the detailed story of modern metallurgy. The topic is modern metallurgy. Let us start with prayer. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. The history of civilization is in many ways linked to the story of the use of metals in antiquity. Although modern metallurgy has been an exponential growth since the Industrial Revolution, it is interesting that many modern concepts in metallurgy have their seeds in ancient practices that predate the Industrial Revolution. Metals were extracted and utilized in the past in stages progressing usually from the use of native metal to those metals which could be smelted easily from ores to those which were more difficult to smelt. The commonly used metals in antiquity include gold, silver, copper, iron, tin, lead, zinc, and mercury. This brief review takes a synoptic look at some aspects of the early use of metal in global perspective. It throws light on some of the mathematics and astronomy is a matter of pride for India. The history of metallurgy in Indian subcontinent began prior to the 3rd millennium BC and continued well into the British Raj. Metals and related concepts were mentioned in various early Vedic studies or Vedic texts. The Rig Veda already used the Sanskrit term ayas, means metal. The Indian cultural and commercial contacts with the Near East and the Greco-Roman world enabled an exchange of metallurgic sciences. During the period of British rule in India, the metalworking industry in India stagnated due to various colonial policies. Through efforts by industrialists, led to the industrious revival during the 19th and 20th centuries. Something has been said about the chemical excellence of cast iron in ancient India and about the high industrial development of the Gupta times, when India was looked to even by imperial Rome as the most skilled of the nations in such chemical industries as dyeing, tanning, soap making, glass and cement, etc. By the 6th century, the Hindus were far ahead of Europe in industrial chemistry. They were masters of calcination, distillations, sublimation, steaming, fixation, the production of light without heat, the mixing of anesthetic and soporific powders, and the preparation of metallic salts, compounds, and alloys. The tempering of steel was brought in ancient India to a perfection unknown in Europe till our own times. King Porus is said to have selected as a specially valuable gift for Alexander not gold or silver, but 30 pounds of steel. The Muslims took much of this Hindu chemical science and industry to the nearest and Europe. The secret of manufacturing Damascus blades, for example, was taken by the Arabs from the Persians and by the Persians from our India. Our Rigveda refers to Ayas and also states that the Dasyus had Ayas. The gods are smelting like copper, metal, or the human generations. The references to Ayas in Rigveda probably refer to bronze or copper rather than to iron. Vedic people had used copper extensively in agriculture, water purification, tools, utensils, etc. You should be clear that any controversy regarding the meaning of ayas in the Rigveda or the problem of the Rigvedic familiarity or unfamiliarity with iron is pointless. There is no positive evidence either way. Let us have a look about ancient Indian metallurgy. Vedic texts give us unique insights in the development of ancient Indian metallurgy. Man and metals have an age-old relationship. Different periods of early human civilization have been named after metals. The attributes of gold influence the mind and heart of Indians so much so that they conferred upon the Supreme Spirit the designation of Hiranyagarbha. It was so called because he remains in golden eggs in embryo. The two important sources for the history of Indian metallurgy are archaeological excavations and literary evidence. Although a considerable amount of information on this subject from the study of archaeological finds is available, literary evidence has not been studied to the extent it deserves. The Rigveda has widely referred to Hiranya, which is the oldest Sanskrit word for gold. It has also mentioned products made from gold, such as water vessel, necklace, and visor. Chariots decorated with gold have also been mentioned. Swarna Ratha, golden chariot, Rajata Radha, silver chariot, etc. The Rigveda mentioned that the river Sindhu contains gold. The word Hiranyamayi was used for the river. Another Rigveda hymn states that the path of the river Sindhu contains gold and the word used for it Hiranyavardhini. It is an interesting to note that Shayana translated this word as Hiranmayo Bhayakula, both banks containing gold. The above hymns are some of the earliest indirect references to the alluvial indirect placer gold deposit in India. The river Sindhu was an important source of gold in ancient times. It is interesting to note the references for the availability of alluvial placer gold in the river Sindhu are also reported in modern times. Further, in the itineraries in Khotanek Sakha from Gilgit to Chilas, the Indus is called Yasarchitaji, the Golden River, which is not mere poetic attribute but a reality. Gold obtained from the river Jambu was called Jambu Nada, and that from the river Ganga, and that from the river Ganga was called Gangeya. These were also alluvial placer gold. The Pali text Anguttara Nikaya narrated the process of the recovery of gold dust or particles from alluvial placer gold deposits in allegorical form. The Mahabharata referred to Pipilika gold. Heaps of this type of gold was presented to the king Yudhishthira at the time of Rajasuya Yaga ceremony. Pipilika gold was powdery in nature and of high purity. It was obtained by panning the gold-bearing soil of ant hills formed by ants or termites as a part of their nature on the land containing placer gold deposits, and hence the name ants gold. Kautilya, the founder of Arthashastra, describes a variety of gold called Rasavidya, which was naturally occurring dissolved gold in liquid form. He stated that when a measure of this solution converts 100 palas of silver or copper into gold, which refers to the commentation of gold on the surface of metals like silver and copper. A similar type of dissolved gold was known as Hataka Prabhasa was mentioned in Gandhavyuha Sutra. Kalidas also mentioned such gold solutions and termed it Kanaka Rasa. It is astonishing to note how people recognized such gold solutions in the past. Native gold is invariably by no means of pure metal. It contains up to 20% of silver, copper, iron, lead, bismuth, platinum group metals, and other metals as impurities. Thus, native gold would have different colors depending upon the nature and amount of impurities present. It is logical to assume that the different colors of native gold refining is available in Vedic text is an allergy form. It was the Ardhashastra of Kautilya which presented in details. Gold refining was two stages process. The first stage was the melting of impure gold along with lead, which removed base metal impurities, but not noble metals like silver. The second stage was to heat impure gold sheets with the soil of Sindhu state, which contained salt. The sodium chloride present in the soil reacted with silver, and the resulting silver chloride absorbed in the surrounding soil. This was a solid state process which involved diffusion of silver in impure gold and the subsequent formation of silver chloride at the gold soil interface. It is an important to note that Kautilya stated that the starting sheet of impure gold must be thin, as this would improve the kinetics of the solid state refining. Usage of gold in granular form, as was the case at least in part in the Sardis refinery of the Lydian kingdom of Anatolia, would result in lower yield. Another important metal referred to in Rigveda is Is. It has a shining appearance. Is has different meanings in different periods. In early Vedic period, it means either copper or copper alloys. One of the important products made from Is, as stated in Rigveda, was the weapon of Indra called Vajra. It was made by the process of Sinchan, mean casting. In the later Vedic period, Is or Karshnayas means iron. In the Atharva Veda, Rajata means silver, Trapu, tin, and Sisa, lead, have been mentioned. Kautilya also described the method for refining silver, which was similar to the first stage process used in gold refining. Further, Kautilya stated a very interesting qualitative test for ensuring the purity of cast silver ingots. According to it, the surface of the East pure silver ingots should exhibit an appearance of chulika. For example, projections similar to clock's comb. In other words, the top surface of the pure silver ingot has a rising appearance at certain places. In fact, this is a reference to the spitting and sprouting behavior of silver. Oxygen dissolves readily in molten silver. Molten silver dissolves approximately 20 times its own volume of oxygen near melting point at 1 atmosphere pressure of oxygen. Just below the melting point, the solid silver can dissolve oxygen only up to half its own volume under similar conditions. The large differences in solubility of oxygen in the liquid and solid state causes the evolution of oxygen during solidification of molten silver. Bubbles of the oxygen are given off, resulting in spitting at the free surfaces. As a result, liquid silver from the interior is ejected on the surface of the ingot, and a shape similar to a cock's comb is formed on the top surface after solidification. This author carried out the experimental replication of the formation of chulika on a small size cast pure silver. If silver contains base metals such as lead and copper, then the dissolved oxygen would combine with it to form respective oxides. In such a situation, the phenomenon of splitting would not be observed and the surface would be smooth. In this context, it is interesting to note that the law governing the solubility of gases in governing metals, known as Silbert's law, came into existence only in the early 20th century. However, ancient Indians recognized the practical aspect of Sievert's law in judging the purity of silver. There is a rich Sanskrit terminology for metals, from which interesting information of history of metallurgy can be derived. Only a few uncommon terms would be cited. Silver has a tendency to tarnish. It tarnishes readily when exposed to atmosphere containing sulfur and looks blackish. Due to this characteristic, an uncommon Sanskrit name of silver is Durvarna. The copper produced in Nepal was called Nepalika or Nepalak and was of high purity. Tin recovered from the lead tin alloy was called Nagaja. Example, that obtained from Naga. Similarly, tin recovered from the impure gold containing tin was called Swarnaja. India was not rich in tin metal. Our ancestors were conscious of this problem and also exploited secondary sources for tin recovery. The presence of lead adversely affects the characteristics of gold, and hence it was also called as Hemagna. The Rasaratna Samuchaya described three types of ferrous materials. Example, Munda, Tikshna and Kanta. When iron ore pierces are reduced by charcoal in solid state, iron blocks containing porosity results. For this reason, the reduced iron blocks are also called sponge iron blocks. Any useful products can only be obtained from this material after removing the residual porosity by hot forging. The hot forged sponge iron blocks are also termed as wrought iron. Munda was wrought iron. Special varieties of iron were called Kanta. An exciting example of ancient India is a world famous Delhi iron pillar. It was erected in the present position in Delhi in the 5th century AD in closed crucibles. Valmiki referred to it by the term refined iron. Kautilya termed it vritta because it was a circular shape. Dr. Helena Scott sent specimens of a variety of crucible steel available in Mumbai area to Sir Joseph Banks. the then president of the Royal Society, London, for experimental investigation in 1794. He referred to this steel as woods in his letter. Recent researches by this author have revealed that the actual name of this steel was the Sanskrit Vutsa in Devanagari script on his trade card, along with a note that it is to be preferred over the best steel in Europe. It was named Vutsa because it had a characteristic of oozing out of the low melting point liquid phase when heated to moderate temperatures. Historically, brass, an alloy of copper and zinc, was known to man much earlier than they were able to extract zinc from its ore on a large scale. In early period, zinc was designated as sattva of zinc ore. In medieval period, it was designated as yashada in Sanskrit. Zinc oxide, known as Pushpanjana, has been referred to in Charaka Samhita. Rasaratnakara provides the earliest documentary evidence for the cementation process for brass making and reduction distillation process for zinc extraction. Rasarnava and Rasaratna Samuchaya described a typical crucible known as a vrintaka, having a shape similar to that of a long variety of brinjal, to be used for making the reduction distillation chamber. The basic principle of this process resembles that of the large-scale 12th century industrial process for zinc extraction unconverted at Jawar near Udaipur. It is a unique discovery, and the retards used at Jawar are similar to the Vruntak crucible. The Mahabharata and some Puranas have referred to ferrous arrowheads which were subjected to Taila Dhauta treatment. Valmiki used this terminology in the context of battle axe. Some of the commentaries of Ramayana have defined Taila Dhauta as a process used for hardening of porous objects. Clearly, this terminology was used in the sense of oil quench, hardening of ferrous materials. Manasol laws written in 1131 AD gives detailed information on fine quality metal image casting by Madhu Chishta Vidhan, last wax process. Both Sushira, mean hollow, and Ghana, solid, images were cast. Although the documentary evidence is of a later period, it had been used since a very long time ago. The famous bronze dancing girl from Mohenjo-daro was made by this process. Shilpa Ratna, later part of 16th century, has mentioned the process of making fine gold powder from thin gold leaves for painting applications. The powder produced would have a flaky shape which gives a higher covering area per unit mass. In the Indian tradition, people with expertise in technical disciplines were highly regarded. This is reflected in a hymn of Atharva Veda, in which Karmar means ironsmith or metalsmith, in general has been called Manishi, a wise or learned person. Further, it has been stated in Kavya Mimamsa that goldsmith, in ironsmith and similar other people should also be invited by kings in the Kavya Pariksha Sabha, literary meetings organized to judge the scholarships of the poets. ये दीवनोरथकाराः कर्माराये मनीषिणः उपस्थीन् पर्णमह्यं त्वं सर्वान् कृण्वपितो जनान्. Metal technology, for that matter all other technologies, are human creations shaped historically by context. The example discussed here illustrate how ancient Indians solved metallurgical challenges which helped in the development of Indian metallurgy, and also that so scientific and technological temper in the people of those times. It is understandable that most of the metal technologies of the past are not relevant in present times. However, examples from the past can re-energize us towards encouraging local innovations and enterprise at all levels. Finally, it is clear that Vedic and classical Sanskrit texts are knowledge texts, and the study of Sanskrit has value because Sanskrit is not just a classical language but a vehicle of discovering our knowledge inheritance and assessing its contemporary relevance. श्रीकांताय कल्याण निधे निधेद्राम श्री वेंकटनिवासाय श्रीनिवासाय मंगलम मंगलाशासन प्रैर्मदाचार्य प्रोगमैः सर्वैष पूर्वैराचार्य सद्गुरुतायास्तु मंगलम्.